5.
7 o'clock. 5 hours left. I climbed onto the back of Uncle Ray's motorcycle and rode into the wind toward the Hartwell estate. The mansion was wrapped in a mass of dark energy. Evan's car was parked outside. Cody lay in the back seat. Evan himself leaned against the driver's side door, as though he'd been waiting for me. A full moon hung overhead, unnaturally bright for the dead of winter. Sandra walked out of the mansion on high heels, her steps ringing against the pavement. All you need to do is give your power just this once. After this, no one else ever has to die. Without your help, Derek could still steal Cody's life. It would just mean another death 10 years down the line. Why make it harder than it has to be? Permanent solutions sound great in theory, I said, but whose permission do you have to use someone else's life for your permanent solution? I reached into my bag and pulled out a stack of pre-prepared ritual papers. Lance climbed up onto Sandra's shoulder and opened his mouth at me in a silent, furious snarl. I honestly wanted to know what curse Sandra was under, that she'd willingly sacrifice herself and her own child to protect someone so ruthless. Sandra reached behind her and produced a blood-red human skull. Lance's spirit dove inside it. A fight was about to break out. Evan tilted an eyebrow, walked over to Uncle Ray at a leisurely pace and said, "Maybe we should step back a little?" Uncle Ray's face was a storm cloud, worried about me getting hurt, worried about Cody's life, pulled between the two. In the end, all he managed was, "Jess." "Don't worry," Evan said. "Neither of them is a match for her." Compared to Uncle Ray, he seemed entirely untroubled. I had nothing to say to that. I threw the ritual papers into the air and placed my right fist at my lips. Sacred purification invocation, heaven and earth in their natural state, foul energies dispersed, the hollow void within the cosmic cavern, luminous and resplendent above the primal source. The papers hung in the air and formed a ring. In my left hand, I shook the yin-yang bell. Light radiated from the papers. Sandra fought back. She held the skull in her left hand, pressed her right palm to its brow. Thick black smoke poured from all 7 orifices of the skull. Then centipedes began crawling out of them. From the black mist coiling above the mansion, bats erupted, a living net of wings, hurtling toward me. Centipedes had reached my feet. I gritted my teeth and pushed harder on the incantation. The light blazed brighter. Bats fell, one by one, to the ground. But dark things kept pouring out, and I was starting to strain. Sandra wasn't doing much better. Her face had drained of color before my eyes. The black in her eyes was spreading outward from the pupils. A centipede crawled up her hand, made its way up her arm, and burrowed into her ear. Sandra was consumed by the dark, completely overtaken. She crushed the skull in her bare hands, bent her knees, and launched herself at me like something inhuman. The ring of light split open. Through the gap, centipedes and bats swarmed me in a dense mass. Several centipedes made it onto my body. I couldn't shake them off. My already injured arm was bitten again by bats. Idiot. Evan's voice had lost all composure. He appeared behind me in an instant. He touched 2 points at my shoulder blades with 2 fingers. Every centipede clinging to my body dropped at once. His arm came around my shoulders, his other hand folded at his chest. I could see his lips moving but couldn't hear a word. Then, with a single syllable, break. The net of bats exploded in midair.
Ash.
The centipedes retreated completely. Lance's spirit materialized now that they were gone, grayish-purple skin fractured with cracks spreading across it. Evan, I never thought you were actually. Sandra collapsed onto the pavement, retching black blood. She stared at Evan with disbelief. She tried to finish the sentence, but the words wouldn't come. The dark mist that had been shrouding the mansion slowly dissolved. Evan's slender fingers traced over the bite marks on my arm. I felt something like a thread of ice slip under my skin. "Stay out of the sun for 3 days," he said. Huh, it's winter, I thought. What sun? Stop standing there. Go in and find Derek. Right. I pulled myself together. Guided by Evan, I performed the ritual and retrieved Cody's life force. The instant Cody's life returned, Derek looked like something had been drained clean out of him. He slumped in his wheelchair, powerless, and watched me carry Cody's restored life back. More precisely, he watched Evan. Strange, Derek still had the strength to fight me. Why wasn't he doing anything? Was it because of Evan? Pretty weak in the end, I said. Derek's mind was sharp, that I had to admit. When Plan A failed, he moved to Plan B without missing a beat. He'd been clever enough to throw me off with a fake trail, and it had worked for a while. But in the end, I wasn't an idiot either. I reported back to my mom, fishing for praise. She gave a short, dismissive laugh. "Uncle Ray had already called your dad before you did. Don't think I don't know exactly how things got resolved. Your father and I told him 1,000 times not to get involved, honestly." A pause then. "The young Mr. Hartwell does seem to care about you, though." Asterisk what? Asterisk, I yelped, and felt the tips of my ears go hot. Immediately changed the subject. "Mom, you calculated all of this in advance, didn't you? You arranged for Dad to disappear on purpose." Is that any way to talk? Her tone went serious. "Your dad still went through a little suffering on your account, you know. You're 20 years old, and you've never gone out into the field alone. Your father and I did this for your own good." A pause then. "Stay with Evan for now. Don't come back for a while."
Why?
What happened? Nothing. Your dad's getting in 4 drip at the clinic right now. I'm going to go sit with him. Goodbye. And she hung up. I stood in the wind for several seconds, completely unmoored. Before I even recovered, the sound of tires screeching came from behind me. Stella Hartwell was sent flying by the impact, landing in a pool of blood. The scene looked exactly as I'd seen it 3 days ago. 2 hours later, Derek would die the same way. These were the misfortunes I had foreseen. What I hadn't anticipated was that the person behind the wheel was Thomas, the Hartwell butler. The road erupted into chaos. In the blood-soaked street, Stella's head rolled toward me, her eyes wide open, staring. Evan appeared, one hand raised to block my line of sight. "Don't look. A resentful gaze held too long will bring you bad luck." I turned and met Evan's steady, clear eyes. I pursed my lips, then asked the question that had been on my mind. Why had Thomas run Stella down? "And who exactly are you?" I added. "Stella called you uncle, but you didn't help the Hartwells at all when things fell apart." "We share some bloodline. Not a lot." Evan considered for a moment. "Cody's situation is all resolved. Still interested in the Hartwell family story." A little curious. Honestly, I was more curious about Evan. We found a coffee shop. Over warm cups, Evan told me the rest of the Hartwell story. At first I'd assumed Derek's mother's death had been engineered by either Sandra or Richard. Then Evan told me it was Derek who killed her. Because his mother couldn't live with the knowledge that her son had stolen someone else's life and had tried to stop Richard from borrowing any more lives for Derek, Derek had killed her and staged it as an accident. Sandra had become Richard's puppet, willing to offer up her own flesh and blood. As for Stella, she was a child Richard had adopted from an orphanage. Derek's latest attempt at life theft failed. He's running out of time. Richard isn't going to let his son die, so he had someone run down Stella instead, hoping to buy Derek a last chance through the transfer of misfortune. Evan paused. Though that trick does work sometimes, I feel like your gift for foresight is a bit more reliable. Evan gave me a strange look. I cleared my throat and told him, I have the ability to foresee misfortunes. Less than an hour left before Derek's predicted death. Have you ever considered, Evan said slowly, that this isn't a gift of foresight at all, but a curse? What? Derek died, exactly as I'd seen it in my mind 3 days before, drowned in the icy water of the well. Only then did I understand. I don't have a gift for foresight. I carry a vicious curse. When Stella insulted me, and I felt that surge of anger, an image of her dying flashed through my mind. 3 days later, it came true. As for Derek, well, he'd threatened someone I love. And as for why we'd really come to Westport, the primary goal was never retrieving Cody's life. It was because my parents wanted to deal with the curse living inside me. End.